Okay, let's call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri. Regular council meeting and motion to close part of the meeting October 20th, 2020. Call a roll.
Councilmember Tall.
Here.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Here.
Councilmember Saper.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
All right. Well, the record will reflect that Councilmember Smith is not with us at the moment.
Yes.
All right. Councilmember Toll, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and let the record reflect that Councilmember Smith has joined the meeting. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Second.
Second.
Councilmember Tall.
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart. Councilmember Stewart, you're muted.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried.
Thank you. The next item is comments from the public. There are no comments to read into the record tonight. Ms. Nakahoto, is anyone online that would like to make a comment from the public?
Mr. Berlin, at this time, I'm not seeing any attendees in the waiting room.
All right, thank you. Then the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda comprising of items 6 through 11. Somebody like to make a motion?
I move the consent agenda be accepted as presented.
Second.
Councilmember Toll.
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number 12, Planning Sustainable Places Grant Agreement, East-West Connectivity Study, Resolution number 20-073.
Thank you. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. One of the top priorities for the community that was identified in our recently adopted bicycle master plan was improvements to Armour Road where it crosses underneath I-35 in order to provide for a better environment for people who are walking or biking along that street. In support of this, over the summer, staff applied for a Planning Sustainable Places program administered by the Mid-America Regional Council for grant funds to support a study of improvements to this area. Our application scored well, and we have been approved to receive $30,000 of grant funds for this project. This program does require local matching funds. We budgeted $40,000 in this year's budget to undertake this study, and so we will use $10,000 of that as our required local match. Mark handles the administration of these projects. That includes contracting, invoicing, and federal reporting requirements. The grant agreement that is before you is an agreement with Mark that in exchange for their providing the administration of the project, we will manage the work itself and provide our local match. This is basically the same grant agreement that we have previously entered into with Mark for the bicycle master plan, as well as other projects for which we received PSP funds. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about this project.
Councilmember DeLong and then Councilmember Saper.
I just want to say thank you to Sarah and staff for putting into this grant. I mean, certainly it's something that's been identified many times as a barrier to the East-West connection, and I appreciate you being proactive and going out and seeking these grants to help us fulfill these things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Saper.
I support the grant as well, but there are a lot of constraints getting under that interstate, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results of the study.
You're correct. There are a lot of constraints, and that's one of the reasons why the purpose of this is to bring on an engineer who can help us identify ways to deal with those constraints in coordination with MoDOT.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Certainly the east-west, that is a barrier there that I would like to see that if we could do something with it. You said the $10,000 is a matching grant, the matching funds that we're going to be using for the grant. The other $30,000 that you have budgeted, what do you anticipate using that on?
Well, there is a limit to what Mark's funds can be spent on. We can not spend them on, when you're doing engineering work, you do your concept and then you do preliminary plan, which is the rough draft of your final plan, which is what you actually put out to bid. Mark funds cannot be used to do final plan or to do some elements of preliminary plan. So really, we'll put kind of that money aside for if we need to do additional engineering work that's not eligible for the grant. And we'll kind of see what the outcomes are from the study before we determine whether there's anything else we need to spend funds on. So the Mark funds replace our monies for doing the conceptual and some of the preliminary engineering, and also help us do the community outreach that's required.
Okay, and how much was that grant?
The grant funds we're receiving are $30,000.
Okay.
I will move to approve resolution number 20073.
Second.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carries. Number 13, amendment to temporary parklet licenses closing date. Bill number 7553, ordinance number 9350.
First
Thank
read.
you all. All right, sir.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. An
I move-
ordinance.
Oh, go
An
ahead.
ordinance amending chapter 4.30 sidewalk eating and alcohol consumption licenses of the code of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri regarding temporary parklet licenses.
I move that bill number 7553 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9350.
Second.
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 Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
An ordinance amending chapter 4.30 sidewalk eating and alcohol consumption licenses of the code of the city of North Kansas City, Missouri regarding temporary parklet licenses. Number 14, budget amendment, home dock city dues. Resolution number 20-074.
Thank you. The city of North Kansas City is a member of the Home Dock Cities Association, which is a group of cities in Missouri whose purpose is to promote the interests of the member municipalities which have riverboat casinos within their jurisdictions. There are 9 of us that are a part of that association. Last year, the association voted to amend its bylaws to provide that the member cities would pay dues according to a schedule depending upon the revenues that they receive from their respective casinos. We are in the range that would call for our dues to be $15,000 per year. These have been used to fund lobbying efforts lately to try to fend off legislation to legalize video lottery terminals in convenience stores and truck stops and fraternal organizations and areas like that. Mayor Stilo and I have actually been participating over the last few weeks in a number of conversations with different area legislators, both our own Senator Arthur and Representative Rogers, as well as others here in the Kansas City Metro, to try to persuade them to oppose efforts to legalize what are essentially slot machines. So we've been talking to them, and the dues are meant to help to pay for the lobbying effort. When that structure was put in place last year, I failed, frankly, to make a note of it and to put a provision for that dues payment in the budget. But we had a Home Dock Cities meeting a couple of weeks ago, at which time I was reminded that dues payment, we will be receiving an invoice here in the next few months. And so I would ask that we amend the budget at this point to provide for that dues payment, since it is intended to protect our gaming revenues. It's proposed to fund that out of the gaming fund. Councilmember Clevenger.
Just a couple of things. First of all, this association is very important. When I've attended the MML conferences, they have meetings about fending off this legislation for the VLTs. So it is a very important association that we need to be a part of. What would be helpful from staff is if you do have a meeting to kind of give us some notes, a recap of what the meeting was about. I know some of us are, been in those meetings in the past, and me for one as well. When they set up the bylaws, I didn't think of it either to include it in this year's budget, but it is something that I do support. But in the future, that if you do have any meetings or whatever, just kind of give us a synopsis of what happened would be great.
Certainly, sir. I'd be happy to. This last meeting was just simply approving minutes and just taking care of business. Yeah, but I will make sure to do that in the future.
Cool.
And
are those dues mandatory?
If we want to be a member of the association, then yes, sir. Which I think we should participate as well as the other cities. Yes, sir.
Correct. I just want to make sure the other cities are paying as well. Thank you.
Everybody is paying. Yes, sir. Okay. Councilmember DeLong.
No, I'd certainly echo what Councilmember Clevenger just said. This type of legislation that Eric was referring to when it was passed in Illinois, revenues just dropped 20, I think it's 20+%. And if it weren't for COVID last year, it might have actually seen a vote last year. So we're definitely in a critical couple of years, I believe, to continue to keep pressure on this. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Toll.
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number 15, approval of purchase 3 police vehicles.
Thank you all. I'll call on the police chief, Kevin Freeman.
Thanks, sir. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Before tonight is the first of 3 requests for approval purchase from us. First one is for 3 police vehicles. Just along with our regular rotation of police cars, it's time to buy again, and we're seeking approval for 3 this year. $99,213 is what the bid came in for the 3 based on the Mid-America Council of Public Procurement. So answer any questions, but seeking approval to move forward with purchase.
Councilmember DeLong.
This is more for Eric. As I look at a lot of other cities' agendas, it seems like a lot of stuff like this, it's already was pre-approved on the budget, end up on the consent agenda. Why do we not include more stuff like this on the consent agenda?
We could do that. I'd be happy to. It hasn't been our practice. The council approval of purchases over $25,000 is required by our purchasing policy. We don't bring that many of these to you because either they're a contract or they're less than that amount, but I could certainly.
Yeah, just as I look at these, at least a couple of these, I believe all under budget and nothing really too crazy to discuss, but okay, that's it. Thank you.
Happy to do that next year or in future, purchases this year. Any other questions?
Second.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number 16. Approval of purchase new firearms.
Thank you. Calling Chief Freeman.
Thank you, sir. This item is for part of our firearms replacement plan for this year. Includes the replacement of all of our department issued handguns. So we're going to get changed to the Generation 5 Glock 17, which is a 9mm platform from the Generation 4 Glock 22, which was a 40 caliber platform. So this was out between the two local distributors for the Glock handgun, and we came in with a bid of $12,887 for replacement. That's quite a bit lower than what was budgeted, just because we have a trade-in value that we've been able to work out with the vendor to lower that cost. Be happy to answer any questions on this as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number 17, approval of purchase replacement of police radio system.
Thank you. I'll call on Chief Freeman.
All right, thank you, sir. This is the big one for us, and the final one tonight. This is for the replacement of our police radios. This will cover all of our handheld radios that the officers carry, as well as the in-car radios. We budgeted $350,000 for this. The bid came in from Johnson County Emergency Communications Cooperative for $335,810.25. So this radio system, as we mentioned in the budget hearings, is for us. We're 10 years into it, and the radios, when they fail, are no longer repairable from the vendor. So it's a replacement cost every time one of the radios fails. So we feel like this is definitely a necessary purchase for us right now. So again, happy to answer any questions and seeking approval to move forward with the purchase.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Quick question on the radios. I noticed, do some officers, do they have a radio on the collar as well? And are those included in the bid or anything like that? Is that a separate radio from the handheld?
The handheld radio, sir, is just it's carried by the officer, and then there's different wear mounts that they can use. They can have the traditional corded microphone is probably what you're referring to. Some of them have some wires that run into an earpiece, so it's not readily heard by the public. But yeah, everything is included in this bid.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number 18, approval of purchase replacement fire inspector's vehicle.
Thank you. I'll call on the fire chief, Dave Hargis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you is the purchase of a replacement fire inspector's vehicle. It's to purchase a new Ford Ranger with a camper shell for our fire inspector to use. He also does our fire investigations, and this will allow him to keep his equipment out of the passenger area of the truck. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yeah, quick question. I noticed on like the bid for the police vehicles, we got the base price, and then there's going to be an additional price for the switchover of the equipment, the lights, bars, I'm sure, everything like that. As far as like I know the fire inspector vehicle and then the ambulance that's coming up, is there going to be any additional costs for switchover of equipment on those two, on the inspector's vehicle and the ambulance?
On the inspector's vehicle, there'll be some more for the decals on the side and a small amount of lights. It doesn't run emergency like the rest of our vehicles do. The ambulance on the putting it in service, all the associated equipment are included in it. There won't be any additional cost on the ambulance at all. And the extra cost on the fire inspector's vehicle will be less than the amount we had budgeted. So it's probably less than $1,000 we have budgeted to spend after the purchase of the vehicle itself.
Very good. Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number 19, approval of purchase replacement ambulance.
Thank you. I'll call on Chief Hargis.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. The next item before you is the purchase of a replacement ambulance. This will be replacing a 2013 M2 Freightliner that's pretty much seen better days. Our ambulance calls are keeping our vehicles running almost constantly. This is going to allow us to have a much newer and more efficient fleet. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer it.
If I may, and Councilmember Saper, I think maybe we're hearing some background noise. Would you mind muting, or if it's not Councilmember Saper, would everybody mind muting unless you're speaking? Thank you. Were there any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Saper, did you have a question?
Yeah, what will happen to the old ambulance? Will that be used as a backup?
No, this will allow our next newest ambulance to move to backup, and then the 2013 will be placed on the Purple Wave auction site like the rest of our excess equipment.
One further question. Since the ambulance provides so much business for North Kansas City Hospital, have they ever offered to contribute to the cost?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, would somebody like to make a motion?
There is a motion. There is a motion second on the floor.
I apologize.
Sorry,
You're right. Yes, sir. It's been moved and seconded. I apologize.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. Number 20, encroachment license agreement, Yates Electric, bill number 7552, ordinance number 9349.
Thank you. I'll call on the city councilor, Tom Barzee.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Before you this evening is an ordinance that, if approved, would grant to Yates Electric an encroachment license agreement. Yates Electric, a longtime business in our city, is located basically at the northeast corner of 14th Avenue and Burlington. On the south side of their building along 14th Street, they would like to add a doorway, an entranceway in and out, a landing, stairs going down one side with a ramp going down the other side, as well as an appropriate guardrail and handrail to accommodate people with the ADA and provide them another access point to the building. As you know, many of the buildings in our industrial section of the city, and even in the business section of the city, those buildings were built pretty much on their property line. Hence, when they want to use the buildings for what I deem to be a higher and better use, they run into this quite frequently. I've checked, it will not encroach at all upon the city's sidewalk. If you notice on page 2, there's a photograph of the area itself. It does not impact where the light pole is, and it does not encroach upon any of MoDOT right-of-way that does come a ways down into 14th, but this would not do that. This will allow them, again, to build those facilities to grant that a way of ingress and egress, an additional way of ingress and egress into the building. And as in other license agreements, they're required to provide and name the city as an additional named insured, and the city can terminate the license agreement basically at any time by giving notice to them. I believe it's 90 days. I could look it up for sure, but that's typically what we give. That allows them the opportunity or the ability to get it out of there, and we would do that in the event it's ever necessary. But these have been granted numerous times on numerous buildings, and I'm sure most of you are aware of that. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Quick question. Just want to make sure you said it will not impact the sidewalk there.
It does not encroach upon the sidewalk area.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Harris in the Community Development Department confirmed that with the drawings that you see as exhibits to the license agreement itself, showing where they are, and they are in the grassy area that's between their building and the sidewalk.
Right, and that's what they maintain. Okay, thank you.
First reading.
Second.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and R.L. Yates Electric Construction Company regarding real property generally located along the north side of 14th Avenue immediately east of Burlington in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move the bill number 7552 be placed on second, final reading, and passes ordinance number 9349.
A second?
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and R.L. Yates Electric Construction Company regarding real property generally located along the north side of 14th Avenue immediately east of Burlington in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri. Number 21, approving accounts due and payable by the city through October 16th, 2020.
First reading.
Number 7554, ordinance number 9351.
Councilmember Farr made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through October 16th, 2020.
I move the bill number 7554 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9351.
Second.
Councilmember Tull,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through October 16th, 2020.
Thank you. The next item is staff comments. There are a couple of reports in your packet for your review. Upcoming city items of note in the Northland Assistance Center Monthly CARES Fund report. At this time, I'd like to call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland, to make a couple of staff comments.
Good evening again. First, I'd like to report to you about a bid opening from last week for the Howell Street bump outs. We opened bids last Wednesday. We received 3 bids. Unfortunately, all 3 of them were significantly over the amount that we had budgeted for this project. So we are going to review the bid forms with our city engineer and discuss with them some options for next steps. We are not planning to award the contract, obviously, but we will be ready to present some more detailed options to you at your next meeting. So that's the bad news. The good news is that the Missouri chapter of the American Planning Association has bestowed upon us a couple of awards. One is for our bicycle master plan. That project received runner-up for outstanding plan for 2020. And the Armour Road Complete Street received the Outstanding Plan Implementation Award this year. We're very pleased about both of these awards, and we're happy to share that good news with you.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Just a quick question on the bump outs, Sarah. Looking at maybe re-engineering or looking at those with the engineer, is there an option? Are you looking at maybe rebidding it out next year like we're doing with the Ball Diamond to see if construction costs are lower then, or?
Yes, that is an option. The fact that we only received 3 bids was definitely a concern for the engineer, or an indication to them that just because of the timing of the year, that, you know, firms are busy here at the end of the construction season, and so we might have some better luck in the spring. But the other concern we have is that, you know, just we bid these as unit price jobs. All of the items in that bid were high. It wasn't just, you know, the mobilization or the site prep that was driving the cost up. The concrete price was high. The sod price was high. The markings were even higher than the engineer's estimate. So we'll also just be looking at it to see if there are other options for making this a more economical project for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to call on the Assistant City Administrator, Kim Nakahoto.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to give you a little bit of an update on the Communities for All Ages program. With the passage of the Bicycle Master Plan, we have now met all of our gold level requirements for the program. Staff has submitted the application for that recognition, and we hope to hear if we have met the requirements by February 2021. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. That concludes staff comments. We'll move on to council comments, and we'll begin with Councilmember Tull.
Just want to say congratulations to the staff. That's 2 meetings in a row that we hear about award winners. So way to go, guys. That's awesome. I didn't want to hold anything up on this meeting, but moving forward, when we look at purchasing vehicles for fire inspector or the police vehicles, I think it might be worth some research to see if we could go greener with any of those purchases. I know like police vehicles have to idle on if you had a hybrid of some sort, and now they make hybrids of all different kinds, not just smaller vehicles. So that might be, it's too late to do it now, but might be something to look forward as we replace our fleets.
Thank you, ma'am. We will take a look at that going forward when we make vehicle purchases. Councilmember Clevenger.
Well, congratulations to community development on both of their awards, both great projects. And so congratulations to you on that. Also wanted to congratulate our new board members on the Equity and Inclusion Committee. Welcome aboard, and looking forward to you guys working with us as well. You people, I should say, you know, we've got a couple of, we had some great nominees tonight and look forward to having them on that committee. So thanks to them for serving on this new committee. That's it.
Councilmember Stewart.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Clark.
I'll just echo the award winnings. That was great. And of course, the board members, that's amazing. The leaves, that's like the town topic, I think. I've been asked questions on my block. Just as a reminder, please don't blow your leaves directly into storm drains or into the street. I see that kind of all over Kansas City. I haven't seen it as much in North Kansas City. But I know it exists. There's a lot of confusion, but they prefer that if you don't have a sidewalk, it goes in between the curb and the sidewalk, and at the end of your lawn, basically, just not in the street. So that's a fun reminder. That's it. That's it for me tonight.
Councilmember Farr.
To echo on her, I'm glad to see the leaf picker up right today. I didn't know if it was going to get out this year or not, but at least they came over on my side of the street and got all the leaves for once. That's it.
Councilmember DeLong.
I want to echo a few things that have already been said. I want to congratulate staff on just racking up awards here, definitely taking the visions of the master plan and making them a reality, and then getting awarded for it as well. So it's a win-win. Also, a question for staff. The southeast corner of 31st and Swift, the sidewalk is missing. Do you have any idea when they're going to get a sidewalk in that section?
Ms. Copeland, I know that we were asked this question recently, and we did indicate that Huntman West is going to be doing something soon. Do you know anything more? We can, if not, we can try to look into that with them.
I don't know anything further. They were expecting to do that work this fall. I will reach out to Hunt Midwest and see if they can give us an update on the schedule for that.
Okay, were they waiting on other stuff to do that, or just adding the sidewalk?
That's part of their finishing work as they do the townhomes. So, I mean, that's the reason it hasn't been done to date, but now that the townhomes there are constructed, we were expecting that to happen this fall. And they previously indicated that.
I mean, they're constructed, people are living there, right? I mean, those are occupied now.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, Jesse, did you have something you were?
Yeah, that Councilmember Smith had asked us that.
Oh.
It is Hunt Midwest's duty to do that, so we'll ask them about where they stand.
And it's not, sorry, I don't want to jump it, but it's not poured standard concrete. It's the paver bricks, and there's a little more to it. By the time they get around to that, the corner of 31st and Howell will also need them because the sidewalks have been poured as well.
Okay, perfect. I mean, just as I'm walking out there, it's a very noticeable chunk missing to what looks like an otherwise completed area. So, okay, thank you for that update. As I mute myself, congratulations to the first slate of appointments to the Equity and Inclusion Committee. Definitely look forward to seeing the work that they do. Another question for staff. Are we going to repaint the crosswalk at Armor and Iron? The road is just redone there, and it had the decorative crosswalk. What did I say? Yeah, Armor and Iron.
That's a good point, sir. We ought to do that.
I can answer that.
Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, we ordered its special thermoplastic design, and it's been ordered. And as soon as it gets in, which should be very soon, our staff is going to reinstall it. It was taken out when the road district did the pavement.
Yeah, perfect. No, that's all. I was just curious if or when that was being done, but it sounds like it's already in the works. Last comment for tonight, just a reminder, there's a few days left to apply for the small business grant. Those applications are due by 11:59 on October 25th. So that's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Saper.
It's exciting to see the Equity and Inclusion Committee moving forward. I think we're blessed in Ward 1 to have a lot of applicants, and I'm still encouraging people in that ward to come forward. I'm distributing copies of the ordinance, and so people know what they're getting in for. And I hope to make a decision by next council meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
I reckon it's all been said.
Mayor Stila.
I agree with Jesse. Number 25.
Eric, Councilmember Stewart
Oh,
has
I'm
his
sorry,
hand
I
raised.
apologize. And get Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I didn't mean, I don't like to back up, but Thomas, when he mentioned the vacuum machine, it came by our house the other day. It was blowing more smoke and more dirt out the top than a locomotive does. Is that something we can get fixed, or is that just the nature of the beast that's going to pick up dust and pump it out? It was a lot of it. Pat, do you know?
Well, that's the first time I've heard about that issue. I will talk to the municipal services superintendent and find out what the problem is.
Well, we had the same thing last year or a year before when we bought a new machine or something. Didn't happen, but it's quite the dust bin. You know, it's like when we was a kid. Maybe not all of you, but following that machine down the street that pumped out insecticides. You know, trying to kill mosquitoes. That's it.
Crystal, can you read item 25?
Number 25, consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute section 610.021-2.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Toll.
Is this where I should say that I'm going to sit this one out because of a conflict of interest? But yes, go ahead.
Okay. Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. So you all have received an email since the meeting began. So if you would go into the executive session by clicking on that link, we'll see you in a moment. Thank you.
On those firearms, huh?
All right, you're back live now.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa.
Want this project to come in.
Bye-bye.
Does that count?
Well,
Wait, did
I
that
think
count?
everybody dropped.
Okay, good. Good.